Well, hello everybody, and thank you for coming to this Cordis webinar with IDC and with Mercer around the business process management imperative, and are you getting the most from your business operations? Just a couple of quick things about the webinar. If there are any questions, then please enter them in the chat window, and we'll try and cover all of those questions if we can, but if we do miss any, then we'll reply directly to you straight after the webinar. And if there are any phones, or if you can mute your phones, then that would be great, just to to stop any noise or background noise or interference. That would be really good. Thank you very much. So very quickly, as an agenda, I'll be doing an introduction. I'm Matt Davis from Cordis, and I look after product marketing for the company. And then after me, there'll be Maureen Fleming from IDC talking about business process platforms and how to evaluate and align that BPM software for your process improvement initiatives. And then after that, we'll be hearing from Mike Mordus from Mercer. He's the CIO of their outsourcing business, and how he's using BPM to change how his business is working. And then we'll kind of wrap it up and close. So a very quick introduction from Cordis for those of you that don't know who we are. We have over kind of 250 customers, and we looked across them all last year, and we said, how do you summarize what it is that people use Cordis and our business process platform for? And it's kind of 6 key things from looking at the customers, and those 6 things are kind of making their business operations smarter, how companies are improving their customer service, how they're helping to increase their revenue and to be a product leader, and how companies can benefit from the cloud, where it makes sense for them, and how do they maximize their existing IT. And the Cordis platform itself, it's one single business process platform. And it's made up really of 3 key parts. There is an integration layer with a full enterprise service bus that allows you to build business services and integrate to many different applications, both on-premise but also in the cloud. And then also master data management to give you a single view of your data. The next level up is the business process management capability, which is traditional BPM, but also case management, business rules, and business activity monitoring. And the top layer you can see here we call the composite application framework, which allows you to build very rich user interfaces for end users, but also business dashboards, and those kind of composite applications made up of data and process information and rules and the kind of graphical things that you get from business activity monitoring to present the right information and the right process information to the right people at the right time. And across all of those 3 layers is what we call the collaborative workspace, which allows the right people to kind of have access to the right parts of the product. It's a very rich browser-based collaborative workspace to allow business people and technology people to use the Cordis platform. And the whole thing is underpinned by our smart services grid, which makes it very scalable and very performant. Start with very small projects, but also they need to grow to those very big projects as well. So that's a quick overview of Cordis. So what I'll do is I'll now hand over to Maureen to talk about how to evaluate and align these kinds of pieces of software for what your process improvement initiatives are.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll just make you presenter, Maureen.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Over the past several months, my team and I conducted intensive research about BPM software. Our goal was to use this research to help our customers make decisions about BPM software that would help them maximize their success. There were several elements to our research. The first involved extensive discussions with enterprises to learn more about what was important to them when they select BPM software, what worked well, and what caused problems during the implementation of the process improvement effort, and what were the different process improvement use cases. The second objective was to learn more about BPM products. We asked more than 20 vendors to demo their software using the same demo scenario. This provided us with a way to compare products. And the third objective was to look at what vendors are doing that is innovative. Over the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'll present some of the findings and provide you with recommendations based on this research. Before we begin reviewing findings, though, let's talk about what business process management is and what is encompassed in BPM. First and foremost, BPM is a discipline that helps enterprises control their business processes. BPM involves explicitly defining and modeling processes. It involves measurement of a business process, and it involves the implementation of an execution environment that automates and helps to manage business processes. BPM tends to look at processes from a customer's perspective, and it involves the analysis of customers, staff, partners, and existing systems that in some way support a process. These improvement initiatives are varied and automate processes that primarily involve workers, or they convert manual tasks to activities handled entirely by systems. Process improvement efforts also can involve measuring and monitoring across end-to-end processes, even when activities are handled by two or more packaged or custom applications. Top drivers for investments in BPM include the need to handle business transformations to gain greater efficiency across resources. This includes the implementation of BPM as an orchestration layer that monitors and manages work executed across multiple applications. Another key driver is the automation of work handled by workers, especially knowledge workers. As jobs become more complex and an organization more matrix, there's a need to develop a strategy for automating work processes as well as provide better tools for more organized and consistent decision making. The third driver is the need to become even more vigilant around maintaining a competitive advantage. One way is to improve the ability to respond to customers by improving the overall agility of a process. The discipline of BPM is technology neutral. Enterprises improve processes by adopting packaged applications. They also build their own custom code and implement on application servers, and they increasingly choose to improve their processes by implementing business process platforms or BPM suites. In 2011, enterprises spent an estimated $98 billion to build and maintain their applications. Looking at the top figure, the smallest but fastest growing option for process automation is to adopt BPM software. Through 2015, growth will be more than 2 times faster for the use of BPM software than alternatives. In addition, the need for BPM to extend functionality within the huge installed base of packaged applications is critical. So it's not only that we'll see BPM suites or business process platforms used to automate custom applications, but we'll also see increasing use of this sort of software to extend packaged applications and to overlay 2 or more packaged applications to control a larger end-to-end process. BPM software is a relatively new style of automation. Roughly 70% of projects involve building a custom application, and these investments tend to automate worker-intensive processes. An emerging style of a process application is a composite application. This involves combining functionality from existing applications with new functionality. BPM software manages the new functionality and the new user interface and coordinates across the different applications. Composite applications are integration intensive, whereas a process application may involve only minimal use of web services. If you look at the pie chart on this slide, even though roughly 45% of spending is building a process application, but and almost all projects involve some type of integration. But a growing percentage of projects rely as much on integration as the business process layer of functionality. In 2011, roughly 41% of spending on process improvement initiatives involved combining BPM with SOA to support business process orchestration, and orchestration is integration intensive. Now moving on to more details about selecting BPM software. So looking at the top factors for BPM software selection and how it's really important to understand how enterprises make their decisions to purchase any type of software, any sort of technology. And it's also interesting to understand more about why they pick when there's so many vendors involved with BPM software, how do they arrive at a decision for one vendor as opposed to any other vendor? So that what we're going to do is go through the top 5 reasons for selecting one particular product over a competitive field of additional products. And in our discussions with the BPM implementation teams, fit with existing environment was a critical factor to 80% of the buyers interviewed. Decision makers aligned BPM software with existing strategic packaged applications, portals, content management systems, as well as the enterprise architecture. So you can see that even though BPM was used to really frequently to build a process application, even throughout this selection process, this notion of how it's going to integrate and interoperate with the existing infrastructure was critical and was the most critical factor in selection. Also important was in selecting a BPM solution was the alignment with their standard framework, whether that's using some sort of Java-based framework such as JEE or Spring or Microsoft's .NET. Alignment was an important element of the purchase decision, and that's frequently because of alignment with existing assets as well as developer skills. The third top factor was ease of development and the ease with which an enterprise can make changes. That was cited by 47% of buyers interviewed. And this was true regardless of whether business or IT was the final final person making the decision. And what was interesting about this is that even, roughly half the decisions are made by business and half are made by IT. And both sides cited ease of development, making changes as a top factor, even though they defined what that meant in different ways. We'll go into that in a little bit. Performance and proof of concept was cited by 42% of buyers interviewed. This was even more important to large enterprises than to small and mid-size. 56% of large enterprises relied on a POC as a critical element of selection, compared with 19% of small and mid-sized firms. Buyers used the proof of concept to assess and estimate the degree of effort required to implement different BPM offerings. And pricing is always important in a decision. In this case, there was really a large emphasis on the actual price or cost of the software to them, as well as the effort involved in the budget required to handle professional services. Across these 5 critical factors, ease of development as well as total costs were assessed largely because of the POC for those that included the step in their decision cycle. So the POC was absolutely critical for the decision. For small and mid-sized businesses, these issues were frequently assessed through demos. If at all possible, a POC is a better way to judge these top issues. Now let's look at some common mistakes in selection. Well, the IT organization almost always purchases BPM software. As I said a few minutes ago, about half the decisions are driven by business managers, and then the rest is driven by business or by IT. When IT dominates the decision-making, process users may complain about difficulties in ease of use, or the implementation is too rigid and doesn't cover the flexibility needed to support use cases, or the user interface may be too slow. All of these combine to make users reluctant to adopt the new process. When business leads to decision-making, managers often underestimate the need for customization, and they select software that either is not capable enough or requires advanced skills to customize, or there are problems with scalability, or the project requires extensive integration that is not supported well in the selection of the software that the business preferred. And the implementation cycle may be more expensive than anticipated because the project is more ambitious than the software used to run the new process. If customization is underestimated, it may be too expensive to make changes rapidly. Because many organizations are using BPM software to implement custom applications more rapidly than traditional approaches and to become more agile, underestimating the amount of effort to customize and to actually make the process automated in the way that the requirements mandate can significantly decrease the benefits of using BPM software. What we also found was that there was a small group of enterprises that created teams to do the selection. And the teams consisted of members from business and members from IT. So when we assessed that balanced group as opposed to business or IT driven, then we looked at this from the perspective of any sort of IT project where we looked at on scope, on time, and on budget. And what we found was that the best chance of a good decision was this creation of a balanced team that involves both IT and business users, the business users that will be heavily involved day-to-day in the new process. Business executives care about the way they want the process to work. Their interest is in how they can be involved in design and the features and functions they'll interact with once the software is in production. Developers care about how well the software performs in the existing environment, the degree of effort to solve production problems. Sorry, let's start that again. Developers care about the features and functionality of the development environment and how the software can be customized if needed. They are also concerned about the ease or difficulty of making changes once the software is in production. IT operations care about how well the software performs in the existing environment and the degree of effort to solve production problems and scalability. A team with members from all three groups are able to make a balanced decision. Now let's look a little bit, let's add some layers of detail about what specifically you look for based on whether you're a business person or a process participant or whether you're the developer. So business process platforms are effectively built on two layers. The first layer is the business functionality and the second is a technical layer. There are 7 large areas of business layer functionality that are important in making a selection. The figure on this slide shows our assessment of best-of-breed functionality represented by the dotted line and average functionality measured by the heavy line. You can see that there's a wide difference between functionality of average and best-of-breed in each feature, and that means there is risk in your selection. The first area of functionality important to business is ease of development, measured by ease with which a business team is able to participate in design and development. Process discovery, the next feature, is the collaborative environment used to design the process. Process modeling allows business to produce a graphical view of the process. Work management supports how work is routed. So it looks at who should receive the work, who is available to receive the work, and whether a person or a system should actually handle the particular task. Task management provides workers with functionality to complete tasks. This includes features such as search, manual routing of work, and collaboration functionality. Some processes require dynamic task management, which allows workers to make changes to processes, while other processes require less flexibility because there may be rules about how work should be processed, either because there are internal mandates or even external compliance and regulations. Case management is the equivalent of folders, where all digital paperwork, data, approvals, and tasks are contained in the folder. The case can be forwarded to other workers, and it can be stored in the case, and all elements of the case are available upon retrieval. Finally, monitoring and reporting provides an environment for process visibility and performance. In particular, reporting and monitoring help managers understand whether the process is performing as planned. Now let's look at the features that are important to developers. They're interested in an aligned but different set of capabilities. These primarily involve how the process is implemented. The figure on this slide compares the technical functionality set with the dotted line representing best of breed and the heavy line average functionality. So again, we see process models. In this case, they're used to design a process, but they're also used in runtime to execute it. That means the process model has to capture the level of functionality required to execute the process. Because work management handles automated work assignment routing, there's a need to support different logical structures for routing. For example, some of the business process platforms support the ability to maintain an organizational model defined differently from a directory service. Without this, any assignment routing that falls outside the directory structure requires custom development. Other types of work management, such as skills-based assignments, aren't supported in the software, and then developers have to build either custom or rules-oriented functionality before they can actually invest in actual process automation. So for a developer, really understanding what has to be customized at the beginning of the process for work management has a substantial impact in the cycle time of actually moving the process from development to production. The next thing is rules, which are also important to business users. Developers are concerned with the depth of rules as well as the tools they can provide to process participants to configure their own rules. Assets such as decision tables and decision trees make it easier for business to provide feedback in support of rules-based automation. Data access and integration functionality handles the web services, data schema, and integration required to support a process. More than half of the business process platforms we evaluated had an embedded enterprise service bus or other advanced connectivity solution in support of orchestration and integration. We're also seeing advanced functionality in support of data schema or objects that can be developed by data architects and supported in the business process platform. I need to cough for a minute, sorry. Excuse me. User interface is also an important consideration. BPM suites began with standalone forms in support of tasks. These forms are available via a web browser and through an email. Increasingly, there's a need to support a forms-based user interface for mobile devices. And another aspect of user interface is whether there's a need to build a composite application. In this case, the UI is composed out of individual objects. So it's important in the requirements gathering to understand what style of user interface is required and then align those requirements with the different BPM products because that functionality differs incredibly broadly. Another area of functionality in the user interface is support of menuing, tabs, and page flows. All of these tools together can create a highly sophisticated application-style user interface when it's needed. And typically, one of the mistakes that we see is this underestimation of the quality of user interface that's required to satisfy business users. The figure on this slide shows a balanced view of functionality. It sort of puts everything together. Again, the dotted line represents best of breed, while the heavy line looks at average. There is significant difference between best of breed and average. Selecting low functionality when best of breed is required creates problems, whereas over-purchasing when a process is not that complicated can also pose problems, particularly when the IT team cannot support the skills required. So it's important to assess a lot of things that are tied to your existing development environment and your ability on the business side to actually be involved with the design and testing of the process, and look for tools that align with that as well as the functionality required. We found that organizations with successful implementations tend to create internal demand for more projects. So that's another byproduct of making a good decision. When you begin your selection process, you should consider beginning with a process improvement initiative that's relatively simple, but select a platform that is a little more ambitious than you think you need. That way you'll be able to invest strategically in a platform while also minimizing your risk of failure of an upfront project. Cordis was a top-scoring product in our assessment. While no vendor has top scores in every area, enterprises that delivered on their vision of process improvement optimized across business and technical layer functionality. Balanced teams were important in their considerations, and the requirements that came from both sides were really critical in assessing. And so what we found is that this notion of balance is a critical success factor in business process management projects, particularly ones that are more than just simple task management. Selecting a business process platform involves more than simply looking at the product. There's a need to assess the vendor's roadmap, partners, and customer satisfaction. The figure on this slide is an IDC MarketScape covering business process platforms, and it's our evaluation of these offerings across all of the factors, including product. The leaders in this all had balanced functionality with good roadmaps and track records of delivering innovative functionality, and they also had really good track records with the customers we interviewed to find out how the products worked in development and production. There are differences across products for ease of use, but any negative on ease of use is exchanged for advanced functionality in support of innovative uses of this software for process improvement. So another advice that I offer here is that the difference in ease of use between what business users want and what the developers want varies fairly widely. And part of the balance is trying to make sure that developers get what they need for configuration as well as for making changes, and the business side gets what they want in terms of a really rich user interface if required, as well as support of the different types of projects that they might need over time. So in conclusion, all the products that we evaluated were capable of supporting specific types of process improvement patterns. Everything that was in all the products in the MarketScape were separated from in our evaluation, and we found them to be highly capable as long as the requirements were aligned correctly. Mistakes happen when enterprises do not align their needs with the appropriate products, and also when professional services are required and not available. That's another thing not to underestimate. Recommendations are to make sure that your decision team is balanced between business users and development, determine your requirements based on your current specific needs and with some understanding of needs over the next few years, and identify vendors that fit these needs, that have good roadmaps and have a track record, and also look for well-qualified partners and check references. finally, the pricing, looking at pricing, assess total cost rather than the cost of the software. We found that when companies worked on pricing only, or pricing was a top consideration, but they didn't estimate what else was required to actually implement the project. For example, they did not realize how important integration might be. They tended to spend once on the BPM software and then have to have additional investments to actually get the process up and running, or they had really large cost overruns on the professional services piece. I hope this presentation was helpful, and thank you for your time, and I look forward to questions. And now I'm handing this back to Matt.
Thank you, Maureen. That was great, and thank you for your insight and helping the people on this webinar work out what to look at and what to look for. We have had one question, which was where do you see business process platforms going next?
Okay. So with business process platforms, this is an area of intensive innovation because there are a lot of competitors in this market, and there are a lot of competitors who are really achieving success, and they're making substantial investments in product functionality. So what we're seeing is similar to the trends that are happening across technology, where we're seeing a definite move to the cloud as an important paradigm, so that you can manage a process and automate a process in the cloud, or you can automate it on-prem, or you could even route work between the two. We're also seeing platforms really better able to support much more decision-centric BPM, and that is particularly around support of knowledge workers, and that includes things like social mechanisms for being able to see what they need to work on and then collaborate and discuss in these social mechanisms to actually work on processes that may not be as prescribed but may be substantially ad hoc but still need to be managed. And finally, we're seeing a lot more mobile support so that you can be anywhere and be involved in the process. And I think one of the most important things that's happening from a roadmap perspective is we're seeing significantly improved architectures of the offerings, where there's separations of concerns, between the different layers, so that you can have better leverage and better reuse in the platform, and also have stronger interoperability between enterprise architecture standards that are coming from different areas of the organization. So expect to see change, which is why we recommend that people really pay careful attention to the roadmaps of the vendors when they're making their selection. Does that do it for you, Matt?
No, that's great. Thank you very much, and thank you on behalf of the person that asked the question. So thank you again, Maureen, and I'm very pleased to now introduce Mike Mordus from Mercer, who's the CIO of their outsourcing business. So Mike, over to you.
Hi, this is Mike Mordus. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Mercer's outsourcing business globally. What I'd like to talk to you about today is business process management and how we're working with Cordis to take that to the next level. So I'll go through a presentation, take a question or two, and then wrap up. So the topics that I'll cover are a little bit about our business as a whole globally, what some of the challenges we're facing are, how we're using the Cordis solution, how that's benefited us, and then, as I said, some concluding remarks and questions. So Mercer's global outsourcing business serves about 10 million participants worldwide across three major areas: defined contribution administration for employees, defined benefit or pension administration for employees, and benefits administration, primarily in the U.S., but globally is known as flexible benefits administration. In the U.S., it would be health and benefit administration. You'll see our major service centers and how many people we have. As you can imagine, with that many transactions, this many service centers, with a fairly significant offshore presence, business process management is something that's critical for our success. We recognized that several years ago, and approximately 2 years ago, we selected Cordis as our core platform globally for outsourcing for business process management at Mercer. in terms of what we do with our clients, you'll see that at the company level, we are responsible for implementing plan setup, doing process design around those plans, and ultimately setting up record-keeping service delivery, being compliant, and giving them back reporting about how their employees are using their benefits, whether those are pension, flexible benefits, or defined contribution benefits. At the employee level then, we're helping them make decisions about their pensions or their benefits, make the elections around those things. When are they going to retire? How much are they going to get when they retire? We're obviously executing all the transactions and advocating on their behalf. And then as they are moving on to different phases of their life, we're distributing money to them or doing rollovers into different types of investments. So there's a lot we're doing at the very detail level that needs to be controlled and needs to be compliant. And then there's a lot of summary information that we're providing at the company level. So it makes for a very complex set of processes and a very complex set of information sharing globally. And we're working with Cordis to have them be the center of that entire process. So in order to deliver in this world, we need to basically make sure that we are constantly looking at ways to make our process repeatable, make them clearly defined, repeatable, automate them and integrate them wherever possible, and be able to move our work into the best possible location at the best possible cost where we can have the right people with the right skills doing it at the right time. And so this circle really represents that, and we are constantly looking at this and looking at the additional processes we can automate. In addition, with data privacy and compliance becoming ever important globally, we believe that making sure we can track who's changing what, making sure that we have appropriate peer reviews are also critical to our success. So processes that used to be maybe straightforward and completed by one person now really need to be peer reviewed, or if we don't believe that the system has completely automated something, we need to make sure that we are tracking the manual steps in addition to the automated steps and making sure that process is moving as quickly and efficiently as possible. So what are some of our challenges that? I've touched on some of them a little bit already. One, as is with any business, driving out cost. When we are doing processes many times, we want to do that as efficiently as possible and, as I said, in the lowest possible cost way at the highest quality. We have a disparate set of record-keeping systems globally. Not every country handles pensions in the same way or handles benefits in the same way, and these are often brought together by people instead of systems, so we need to make sure we take that into account. We need to be able to leverage what we've built already. A lot of people have invested a lot of money in record-keeping systems, in surrounding systems over time, and wherever possible, if that system is doing what it needs to do, we want to be able to leverage that, but we also want to be able to take it to the next level by integrating it into a, if not country-based, a global process. As I mentioned, the data privacy requirements are increasing, and as I also said, are working to move work to our low-cost processing centers. All of these things continue to be challenges, as well as continue to be drivers from our clients, the people who are writing us checks every day in order to deliver their work in a quality way, and they are expecting more and more of us in terms of process efficiency, accuracy, and compliance. So none of this is going toward a more loose arrangement. If anything, the requirements are going up. Really what Cordis allows Mercer to do, right, is address these challenges and in our world be able to take it to the next level. So I'll talk a little bit about what that means. You can see the words that I have on the slide here which line up with these challenges that I talked about on the previous page. I want to call attention to a couple of the critical ones. Number 4 there, we really believe that as a global firm, it's in our interest to implement a set of global best practices that may start in one geography but then be able to propagate everywhere. And Cordis's architecture and environment allows us to do that. As I mentioned already, number 5 on this list, encapsulating existing solutions. We need to leverage what we have already without having to replace it, and if we are replacing it, be able to do that in a constructive way over the course of time. And then the last one, we really have a lot of SLAs that are tied to direct penalties to us, so the fewer errors that we make, the better off we are. And while that's not always the easiest thing to measure, it is critical to the success that we believe is in our future, and we believe Cordis is critical to helping us drive down those error counts and making sure that our processes are automated and straight through wherever possible. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about volumes and savings. You'll see that there are a couple core processes that we have been able to drive using Cordis and our workflow environments that are have really benefited in a significant improvement in our operation. And you'll see the primary one amongst them is the document management process. We handle approximately 1 million documents a year that are imaged. They are sent around the globe. We've been able to eliminate manual processing of these, automate the indexing of them, control them, and most importantly, when a client wants to see one, we actually have it available through our websites for them to see. So there are just many, many different levels that benefits us. You also see the increase in productivity, the increase in audit review across all the inbound data management, carrier file processing, and member request processes. So all of these have benefited us tremendously, and we continue to, what I view, take these to the next level, which is ultimately what we want to do is have a straight-through process where Cordis is allowing us to integrate directly from our clients' environments. So we're actually wrapping our clients' environments through to our environments, and then ultimately if there's an insurance carrier or another insurance company on the back end that we're interacting with to interact all the way back to them, and that will allow us to tie together that whole process, control it a lot better, and make it a lot more efficient. So that really is where we're focused. I guess a couple of concluding thoughts before I take questions. We are in the process of rolling out Cordis globally, and that's replacing a whole series of existing workflow solutions that are custom built, some other packages, but it's allowing us to get a lot more leverage as we look across the world. As I just noted, we're beginning to integrate Mercer's client solutions into the frameworks that we have, which to me is an incredible opportunity for us as a business because it helps our clients. It's a win-win in helping our clients and helping us. The other thing that we've done is we've been able to create a global center of excellence around Cordis. So we have standards, we've built frameworks, we've taken from the Cordis community, we've been able to leverage things that other people have built to build into our frameworks, and we've been able to develop, in working with Cordis, a set of very knowledgeable, skilled architecture development resources that we can then deploy across the world as these processes begin to be automated. And the last one I'll say, having worked across the BPM industry for a while in various roles or used various products, Cordis is a very open environment. There's a very strong community of people who are developing, who have created workflows on top of the Cordis solution. And one of the things our architects and developers like the most is that we're not dealing with something that's unknown. Rather, all the things that Cordis has done have been open industry standard, and that's really accelerated our development community's adoption of the solution. And I wouldn't be here talking with you if I really didn't believe that we are looking forward to an even brighter solution, or even brighter future based on the Cordis solution in the years ahead. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mike. That was great. I think we've got one question here, which was just, I don't know if you have these to hand, but the question was, how quickly did you kind of get an ROI on the Cordis solution, and what factors do you kind of really measure your return on investment by, I guess is the question.
It's a great question. I think ROI we look at as total cost of ownership offset against the benefits that we see from implementing any given solution. So I'll set that as a starting point. So total cost of ownership is really driven by the ability of Cordis, has been driven by the ability of Cordis to work with us as a global provider and structure an arrangement where financially we were able to leverage what we created using the Cordis solution globally without having to incur significant additional costs. So that Cordis really has done a great job in working with us through that first part of that equation. I think the second part of that then is the savings that we are able to achieve as offset against those that total cost of ownership. And I think in that case, what we were really looking at here are the labor that's associated with manually processing a lot of these documents or tracking and recording the audit trails that are required. I think we were also looking at the time that it takes for issue resolution, or the time that it takes, the reduction in time that it takes to respond to audit requests, which is a fair amount as you look across our world globally. And the last one is the reduction in errors that we have, and how that lowers the risk to our business, but also lowers any of the SLA penalties or the other E&O penalties that we might otherwise have in our business globally. So all of those things are a benefit to us, and at the volumes that we process every year, you can see that those quickly add up. I think process by process, the realization that those are different. To get to the level where we are today, it's taken several years, but we anticipate that this will only increase, and obviously we'll be able to scale our business without having to significantly scale our operation as we add processes into the Cordis environment.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, that's great. And thank you again, Mike, for all your time and insight into how you're using Cordis.
Thank you. And I look forward to the future.
Ditto.
All right, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming to the webinar. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Mike. And keep your eyes open, because I think there's going to be some more Cordis webinars coming very soon. If there are any questions, then we'd love you to get in touch. Just send us an email to marketing@cordis.com, and we'll hopefully see you on the next one. Thank you again, and goodbye.